Loki's first season recently ended, and despite my disappointment with WandaVision, I decided to check it out. And I do not regret this decision one bit. The show was absolutely worth it. Most of my issues with WandaVision were either negligible or not present at all. It is important to point out that unlike the other two Marvel shows that have come out recently, Loki was confirmed to have a second season pretty much as soon as the first one ended. Because of this, the story is left a bit unfinished, so in this review I will be talking only about Loki's first season. The second season may be a flop or it may be on par with this one. I, however, lack Nathaniel Richards' omniscience to know how it will turn out. Also, fair warning, this review will include a lot of spoilers, so beware. Now, what got me interested in the show was a clip of this absurd bureaucratic scene which had caught Loki in this almost Kafkaesque situation. I wish they had used a bit more of this as the show progresses, but I'm fine with it as it currently is. This was also the first Marvel show to have an actually good supporting character, as portrayed by Owen Wilson, who just worked so well with Loki's narcissism.
I am smart. I know.
Mobius had easily won the spot as the best character in my heart until the very last episode, until he was introduced. I am a sucker for a good villain, and as I stated before on numerous occasions, it is the antagonist that serves as a foundation to make the plot interesting in any story. And I loved the He Who Remains character. Jonathan Majors does a fantastic job of portraying him, with all of the subtle gestures, facial expressions, voice inflections, poses, just everything. It's an incredible performance. I watched the last episode 4 times. And I can watch it 1,000 more. I criticized WandaVision for having an unnecessarily spectacular fight as its ending. But Loki has people just talking. And it is a well-deserved ending. Loki has been on an incredible journey of character development. He was never really a villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, more of him just trying to be one, as that was the role prescribed to him. However, he still cared about his family, about his people, even if he had a hard time to express it until his death. And in this show we see him become less self-centered, more trusting, more cooperative, and more altruistic. Now, there are some things I disliked, most of which are standard Marvel stuff. For example, the fight scenes sometimes look absolutely stupid, or some of the actors were doing a terrible job at acting, and some green screen shots sometimes seemed out of place. I don't know if my last point is due to everything looking out of proportion, or is it the lighting, but it sometimes took me out of the experience. But these are all minor stuff. A major gripe I have with the show is about the ending and Sylvie. This really rubbed me the wrong way as it was what determined the direction of the plot. When Loki and Sylvie meet the One Who Remains and he explains to them his reasoning for his actions and warns them about the chaos that will arise from his death, Sylvie naturally accuses him of lying. This is perfectly in character as she grew up on the run, never trusting anyone. However, it is also perfectly in character for her to abuse a certain power of hers that lets her see people's memories. To me, it seemed perfectly natural that she would use enchantment to verify the One's story. But for some reason in the show it seemed more logical to use enchantment on a literal fucking storm and beat it through the power of friendship. Sylvie has used this power every chance she has gotten, even when she first met Loki, but for some reason it was forgotten when it mattered the most. And maybe it would not have worked because it doesn't work on intelligent people or whatever, but no such attempt was made to see if it would succeed. I would have had no issue with the ending if Sylvie had attempted to use enchantment and then failed, thus the story could have continued without any changes. And someone might try to defend it by saying that she was more emotional, so she didn't think about using it, but I don't think this is the case as Loki seeded enough doubt that the One story may be true for her to attempt it. At the very least, she could have used enchantment with the motivation of proving Loki wrong. I think the writers really wanted to go down the path of multiverse chaos, as that would have some implications for the MCU or whatever. However, if Sylvie had used her power to see the foretold chaos, we could have had a very interesting self-contained story. Imagine now Sylvie had seen the horrors that would come if they murder He Who Remains, and now has motivation to preserve the sacred timeline. She then has to make the awful hard choice of becoming the thing she sought to destroy out of necessity. I think that would have been a great ending and a unique character development. Or perhaps she could have begged Loki to take over the sacred timeline as she's incapable of doing that. Thus he finally becomes a ruler, even though he now doesn't want to be one. But I think the idea of necessary evil is still beyond Marvel at this point. Maybe as it matures more in this MCU phase, we will see more interesting narratives in their future shows and in their movies. In conclusion, I will rate Loki's first season a solid better than sex out of 10. Definitely go check it out, and hey, even if the second one is disappointing, you can just pretend it never happened.